Good morning. Welcome to Second Unitarian Church. I am Tammy Stump, a member of the Church's Board of Trustees, and my pronouns are she, her. In response to COVID-19, we at 2U are doing our part in slowing the spread of the coronavirus. We are continuing to meet virtually using Zoom. You will notice that there is a chat feed available for you to interact with. You are welcome to use this to say hello to one another and to share your joys or concerns when we reach that time in the service. When we would traditionally sing together and read things in unison, you are encouraged to do so as well, even though you are on mute. Our voices echo through the world, so we might just hear one another if we listen closely and sing with our full spirit. As things continue to change, we will be paying close attention to the recommendations of public health officials and respond as quickly as possible. At this time, we recognize physical distancing as an act of love and protection. We especially welcome newcomers this morning. During this time of pandemic, finding a new community and making new connections can be challenging. Please know that we are excited to have you and look forward to getting to know you. If you are new to us today, you are welcome to note that in our chat. Following service today, all children's religious education classes are happening, as well as youth group. If you would like to register your child for classes, please reach out to Alicia Obando. Our worship today is led by Vanessa Williams. Vanessa is a second-year Master's of Divinity student at Meadville Lombard Theological School and ministerial intern at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Castine in Castine, Maine. We also have worship associate Margot Horn and chalice lighter Kara. Our music is provided by Carl Kennedy and our music director, Amanda Thomas. Vanessa is leading the Time for All Ages. Our tech team are Eric Schutzler, Dan Ashley, Christy Grant, and Tyler Dustin. I have a couple of announcements for you this morning. Reverend Elizabeth Harding will be facilitating a multi-week grief support group for those who are grieving the death of a loved one who died sometime within the last 24 months. Grieving can feel lonely, and being with others can be helpful for navigating loss. If you are interested, please contact Reverend Jason. Time and day of week will be determined after interest is figured out. The 2U Canvas is wrapping up the pledging season in the next couple of weeks. Though there are many opportunities to give at 2U throughout the year, including the Fall Fast and Offertory each Sunday, pledging is the most important way to contribute to the life of this community. Pledging allows us to set the operating budget for 2U for the year and plan how to use resources that build and sustain our community. Over the past several years, we have seen a steady increase in pledges, which we view as an expression of growing interest and investment and excitement about 2U. We have received a little over half of our pledges for the upcoming church year. We hope that those of you who have not yet pledged will do so within the next week by following the link that I will be dropping in the chat or filling out and returning the pledge card that was mailed to you. You can find more information and additional announcements in your order of service. I now welcome Margot Horn to lead our call to worship.
We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a community of children, youth, and adults, a people of many beliefs and traditions, bound not by the specific list of things we believe, but the values we share. Whether you are joining us for the first time or for the 1000th time, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God some of the time, all of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. Whatever your race, whomever you love, whichever way you move in the world, however much money is in your pocket, you are welcome here. I invite you now to take a breath in and out. As the music begins, let us enter into our worship together.
In just a moment, Kara will light our chalice, the symbol of our faith. We light our chalice this morning with these words from Celia Thurston. I light this chalice for you. Mending chalice, I light this chalice for all the times you have lit this chalice. For every time you struck the match or flicked that zapper thing, or empowered a marvelous parishioner, a nervous parishioner to do the same. I light this chalice for all that you've done, for all you've fostered and cultivated and nudged, for all you've suggested and directed and maneuvered. I light this chalice for the intensity of your reactions in responding to grace and rejecting mediocrity, within the tender balance between tradition and choice. I light this chalice for you, your being here now, out of calling, out of commitment, out of love. I light this chalice for the time you have spent preaching and hurting and healing. I light this chalice for you. Kara, would you light our chalice, please?
Please join me in singing our opening hymn, number 1002, Comfort Me. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my
join me in reciting our covenant. The words are on your screen. We covenant to build a community that challenges us to grow and empowers us to honor the truth within ourselves. We will be generous with our gifts and honest in our communication, holding faithful to a love that embraces both diversity and conflict. Called by our living tradition, we will nurture spirituality within a vision of the eternal, living out our inner convictions through struggles for justice and acts of compassion. Please join Ben and Julia Cedarquist, accompanied by George Cedarquist on ukulele, in the singing of our congressional hymn, Spirit of Life.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is our starting note. You might also be down here. That might be easier for you. I'll give us 4 bars of introduction before we start singing. Spirit of light, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
I would now like to invite all the young and young at heart for our Time for All Ages story, Good Night, by Shelley Moore Thomas. Once, there were 3 little dragons. They lived in a dark cave. The cave was in a dense forest. The forest was in a faraway land. The poor little dragons were very lonely in their deep, dark cave. In the kingdom, there was a good knight. Every night he kept watch. He watched from a crumbly, tumbly tower. It was on top of a very tall wall. One night, the good knight was on his watch. He heard a very large, very strange roar. So the good knight left the crumbly, tumbly tower. He climbed down the very tall wall. He jumped on his horse. Away, he said. He galloped through the king's forest. Clippity-clop, clippity-clop. He came to the deep, dark cave. Inside, he saw the first little dragon. What's this? He asked. Methinks it is a dragon. And he drew his shimmery, glimmery sword. The dragon had on his jammies. He was all ready for bed. Oh, good, you have come, said the dragon. Could you bring me a drink of water, please? Then I can go to sleep. The good knight did not know what to think, but he was a good knight. So he got a drink of water. He gave it to the dragon. Then he tucked him into bed. Good night, good dragon. Sleep well, sleep tight, said the good knight. Then he galloped away. The good knight went back through the king's forest. Clippity-clop, clippity-clop. He got off of his horse. Thud. He climbed up the very tall wall to the crumbly-tumbly tower. There he stood watch. He stood on watch for 5 minutes. Then he heard another very large, very loud roar. "I don't believe this," he said. He left the crumbly-tumbly tower. He climbed down the very tall wall. He jumped on his horse. "Away!" he cried. He galloped through the king's forest, clippity-clop, clippity-clop. He came to the deep, dark cave. The second dragon was in her jammies. She was all ready for bed. "Oh, good, you have come," said the second dragon. "Could you read me a story, please? Then I can go to sleep." "And could I have another drink of water?" said the first dragon. The good knight did not know what to think, but he was a good knight. So he read the dragon a story. Then he tucked her into bed. He got the first dragon another drink of water, then he tucked him into bed. "Good night, good dragons. Sleep well, sleep tight," said the good knight. Then he galloped away. The good knight went back through the king's forest, clippity-clop, clippity-clop. He got off of his horse, thud. He climbed up the very tall wall to the crumbly-tumbly tower. There he stood on watch. He stood on watch for 2 minutes. Then he heard another very large, very loud roar. "This is too much," he said. He left the crumbly-tumbly tower. He climbed down the very tall wall. He jumped on his horse. "Away!" he cried. He galloped through the king's forest, clippity-clop, clippity-clop. He came to the deep, dark cave. The third dragon had on his jammies. He was all ready for bed. "Oh, good, you have come," said the third dragon. "Could you sing me a song, please? Then I can go to sleep." "And could you read me another story?" said the second dragon. "And could you get me another drink of water?" said the first dragon. The good knight did not know what to think, but he was a good knight. So he sang the dragon a song. He tucked him into bed. He read the second dragon another story, then he tucked her into bed. He got the first dragon another drink of water, then he tucked him into bed. "Good night, good dragons. Sleep well, sleep tight," said the good knight. Then he galloped away. The good knight went back through the king's forest, clippity-clop, clippity-clop. He got off of his horse, thud. He climbed up the very tall wall to the crumbly-tumbly tower. There he stood on watch. He stood on watch for 1 minute. Then he heard the largest, loudest roar of all. "Not again," he said. He left the crumbly-tumbly tower. He climbed down the very tall wall. He jumped on his horse. "Away!" he cried. He galloped through the king's forest, clippity-clop, clippity-clop. He came to the deep, dark cave. "Oh, good, you have come," said all three dragons. "Let me guess," said the good knight. "Another drink of water?" "No," said the first dragon. "Another story?" "No," said the second dragon. "Another song?" "No," said the third dragon. "Then what do you want?" cried the good knight. "We need a good night kiss," said the little dragons, and they lifted their scaly little cheeks. "This is going too far," said the good knight. But he was a good knight, so he bent and kissed each scaly little cheek. "Good night, good dragons. Sleep well, sleep tight," he said. The dragons said, "Good night, good night." The good knight left the cave. He waited outside. He heard the loud dragon snores. Then the good knight went home through the king's forest, clippity-clop, clippity-clop. He got off of his horse, thud. Now, said the good knight, maybe I can get a good night's sleep. And that is just what he did. Sleep well, sleep tight, good night. The end. Thank you for listening to our story.
Each year, we all make a commitment, a pledge to support the ministry of our church. In addition to this contribution, each Sunday we take a collection so that we can share with those doing justice beyond our church community. While we are unable to come together in person, you can still share your resources. To make your contribution, you can send a text and follow prompts. We will have the number on your screen as the music plays for the offertory. For the month of March, we are sharing our plate with the International Convocation of Unitarian Universalist Women. International Convocation of Unitarian Universalist Women is a global partnership of Unitarian Universalist women who work for women's empowerment through Unitarian Universalist connections around the world. This morning, we will hear some words from Kimberly Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So my name is Kimberly Barris, and I'm our church's representative for our Transylvania Partner Church relationship. I had the opportunity to talk with IWC's Executive Director, Sophia, and learn more about their efforts in Transylvania. Our partner church is located in Kanosh, known as Cinusu in Romanian. Kanosh is the Hungarian version. And some of us have had the pleasure of traveling to our partner church village and learning more about life in Transylvania. With its horse and oxen-drawn carriages, it's hard to imagine children being able to continue their education through remote and online learning. That's where IWC comes in. IWC is raising funds to provide laptops for girls in Transylvania in partnership with the Providence Charity Organization of the Hungarian Unitarian Church. This is an opportunity for girls who are disadvantaged or living with disabilities to gain access to education in a COVID-19 world where remote learning is our new normal. Also, IWC and the Unitarian Women's Association of Romania have organized 2 joint services since the pandemic, one in October 2020 and one just in January 2021. Both events were recorded and are available on their YouTube channel, and I'll put some links in the chat after I'm finished. The focus of future programs and fundraising efforts will be on domestic violence, which has been exacerbated by the pandemic. I want to thank you for your generosity of spirit as you contribute to the International Women's Convocation's programs in Transylvania and across the globe.
Now, I invite you to join me in reading our offertory words. The words are printed in your order of service and are on the screen. This church is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm it, enable its participation in the larger world around us. The offering will now be generously given and gratefully received.
Good day and good morning. We meet again, or for the first time, creating, developing bonds as kin in this lattice web of life. May we be ever connected despite the difference, the distance. We venture together into this unknown terrain with the web at our backs to catch our falls. Let us face the sun of the day. Lift our hearts in the name of love, that glue which holds it all together. Let us open our minds and lay close our ears to the message left just for each of us. Between each word, let us together worship.
At this time, Margot will light 2 candles. one representing the joys and celebrations we are experiencing, and another representing the concerns and sorrows we are holding.
We hold all of these joys, celebrations, sorrows, and struggles close to our hearts. Elaine will now share our first reading.
The Church Has Left the Building by Margaret Weiss. The church is not a place, it is a people. The church is not only a steeple above the tree line, streets, and cars. Rather, it is a people proclaiming to the world that we are here for the work of justice and of healing. The church is not walls, built stone upon stone, held together by mortar, but rather person, linked with person, linked with person, all ages and genders and abilities, a community built on the foundations of reason, faith, and love. The church is not just a set of doors open on Sunday morning, but the commitment day after day and moment after moment of our hearts creaking open the doors of welcome to the possibility of new experience and radical welcome. The church is not simply a building, a steeple, a pew. The church is the gathering together of all the people and experiences and fear and love and hope in our resilient hearts, gathering however we can to say to the world, welcome, come in, lay down your heartache and pick up hope and love. For the church is us, each and every one of us, together, a beacon of hope to this world that so sorely needs it. Margot will now share our second reading.
Invitation to Join the Journey by Lynn Cox. Come, you accidental pilgrims, you who find yourself on a journey of surprise and wonder. Come, you who emerge into this place as an act of liberation. Come, you who seek a life of mindfulness and a place to test your thoughts. Come, you who bring hearts of all kinds, heavy hearts, rusty hearts, hearts broken open in revelation, hearts full of love to share. Come, you who seek courage, and you who have more courage than you realize. Come, you who stand behind the curtain, gathering up the resources to claim your truth. Come, you who have been in a bubble, you who are poised for transformation. We begin our story again, gathering courage, love, mindfulness, and a sense of purpose. We gather as people of all ages, of different abilities, different backgrounds, and different perspectives. We share a covenant, a direction for our shared journey, and a commitment to encourage and challenge one another to spiritual growth. This path will ask much from us. Let us move forward with love. Let us move forward with appreciation for one another. Let us move forward knowing we are not alone. Whoever you are, whatever your gifts, you are welcome to join this journey.
In Chicago, where many of you presently are, is a man I recently learned of named Timuel Black, who turns 102 last month. I learned about him not because of the length of his life, but rather in relation to the length of his commitment, a lifelong commitment to racial justice. An article and video interview of this extraordinary individual was forwarded to me by a friend from seminary. I read and took in the depth of his story. His exodus to Chicago as a child from the South, his lived education on racial justice via his family's influence, his service in the military following Pearl Harbor, his continued education, teaching, and his efforts to take on segregation and discrimination in his city. In the interview, Mr. Black describes himself as being tired, but says, quote, that when the end comes, I will leave with hardly no regrets because I did the best I could. I am humbled and inspired by his life story. Most significantly, his commitment to concerns of the community. I too am personally committed to anti-racist work, and like Mr. Black have been since childhood, pondering big questions of racism, as my Pennsylvanian family was forced to face it. Mr. Black was doing the same as a child in the 1920s and 30s. Being born at the height of Jim Crow and the Ku Klux Klan may not have given him much choice but to face racism. It would have been present and activated full force. But his commitment to racial equality, that is a matter of choice. A century's commitment to racial justice should make us all take pause. What would you be willing to commit almost a century of a lifetime to, if you were given the opportunity? I think of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. Mr. Black might have understood where King was coming from when he reflected on where the nation had been. It's this kind of knowledge that may have made him want to strive toward racial equity. But what foresight would have kept him on board? What personal dream did he have that would have kept him committed, even after the leaders of the civil rights era, like Dr. King and Malcolm X, had passed on? What made this man keep on? For many of us, we are committed to things that we may not even actively think about the question of not doing. For some things, we are driven practically on autopilot because we never even imagined that there was a question of whether we could continue or not. For me, motherhood was one of these things. Once my daughter was born and in my arms, I never fathomed not parenting her through the various stages of life. I recall within the first few days of caring for her and nursing her, being so utterly exhausted and thinking, how am I going to keep doing this? The question was not whether I was going to keep doing it, caring for my child. The question was how. How was I going to efficiently care for such a precious, tiny being in my moments of burnout, in my moments of sickness, when things got tough in any way? I think of Mr. Black's commitment to racial equality, like that of my commitment to my child. How could we not continue attending to this vitally important thing? In truth, we could have stopped, each of us in our own tasks, but we did not. Something kept us committed. I ask again, what would you stay committed to if things got difficult? Right now, there is a modern civil rights movement happening, part of the Black Lives Matter movement, with aims like Mr. Black's for racial equity. And there are weekly vigils and protests held by committed individuals of all colors across the nation for racial justice. In many of these locations, it is still winter weather, despite the spring equinox arrival. In bitter cold and snow, these activists have maintained a presence for what they believe in. They too could have walked away, decided not to withstand the heat in summer or brave the cold in winter, handed a picket sign over to someone else, or just stopped appearing. Some did just this, but others, a substantial number at that, others stayed on. They found ways in their various capabilities to stay committed, whether through donation, art, speaking, spreading the word, or various other avenues. But why are these individuals gathering? Why are they organizing? And why are they coming back again and again? Why are they committed? Why was Samuel Black committed for a great part of a century? One might identify the reason for their committing in the need for social justice. But even at that, the question can be begged further. Why social justice? Why? In essence, for community. Community, that network of lives that nurtures and shapes our own, and that we individually shape in return. Our community is part of our lives. Community is part of the self. It is an act of self-preservation to want to care for community. The close-knit weaving of community into our lives enables us to care about and for community as much as we care for our own precious lives. We commit to community like we commit to a newborn that cannot be without our involvement. Thus, we commit to community in moments of adversity and in spite of adversity. Commitment is an act, not a word, philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre insists. Commitment is an act. It isn't what we do that informs of our commitment. It is braving the cold and winter weather to stand with an informative, transformative sign, to stand for a cause. Moreover, commitment is an act of courage, of faith. It is a devotion to a cause with an end that cannot be known. But there is divine working that happens once one commits. In this way, the poet Johann Wolfgang von Goethe wrote of commitment, saying, "The moment one definitively commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issued from the decision, raising to one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance which no one could have dreamed would come her way. Whatever you can do or dream, you can begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it." When we commit, we venture on a journey of possibility, directed by our willingness to commit to our imaginings. For community, there are a number of dreamscapes of commitment that I can think of once I open myself to understanding of commitment. Whether it be in the cultivation of beloved community, in efforts for adoption of an eighth principle, in social justice marches, in efforts to inform and register voters, donating clothes to a homeless shelter. Commitment to community is at the core. We commit to community in an effort to see our core principles reflected in the society we witness and experience. But how do we know what to commit to for the betterment of society? In looking at the worries of the world, does the overload make movement difficult? The overwhelm of need can drive one toward apathy, but this is not necessarily the case. Holding on to the Goethe conception of commitment may allow us to broaden our vision to include hope of as yet foreseen, unimagined possibilities. Commitment to community is a treasure map toward the fulfillment of communal needs. Without commitment and the vision required, there is no dream aspired to, nor raised, and no future where things like the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King may be foreseen. Quote, "All of God's children, Black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, may be able to join hands and sing, in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last." Commitment is difficult, but commitment for self and for others is different. For me personally, it is easier to falter on commitments geared to just myself. But if it's for another, my caring instincts gear up. I am willing to commit for another in need what I might not commit for myself. My commitment to my daughter is a prime example. But she is my child. Of course I should be committed, right? What of a friend, a fellow congregant? From my experience in UU Church, I have seen many quickly step up for others where they might not if it were for themselves alone. Commitment to community is hard, like any commitment, but it is natural. We are pack animals, and as such need each other to survive. Our commitment to others is in itself a commitment to our own self-preservation. When you succeed, thereby I succeed. When you flourish, thereby I flourish. When we commit to others, when we commit to community, we are shaping, preserving, and modeling the ideal of community. The act of commitment here is the gardening of community. And from our tending, the community may come to resemble our wildest imaginings. Let your communal garden not be overwhelmed by weeds of despair. Rather, may our commitment tend this garden and cultivate growth anew. Alas, whether we tend to community for 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, or even 102 years, as in the case of Timuel Black, may our commitment be an enduring legacy to be left behind in the bountiful community that continues on after one's time in it. And let our commitment to community be challenged only by the vision of our divine imaginings, opening possibilities where they once seemed merely impossibilities. May it be so. Amen. Please join us now in singing our closing hymn.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. And we will get there, heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, we are going, heaven knows how we are going, but we know we will. And we will get there, heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, 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 oh yeah, 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 oh yeah, 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 oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I invite you to cross your hands over your heart and hear these words of benediction. As we go our separate ways now, into our own corners of a globe. We settle into a new week of tasks and obligations. We take along with us a piece of what has been cultivated here, a piece of ourselves transformed by community and wisdom bestowed. May our ways pass soon and frequent again. May our hearts resolve to be strengthened. May our commitment to self, community, and this sacred space be the bedrock that steadies our spine and makes getting through each day a grand possibility. And as you go now, go in peace, go in love, go in thanks. Amen.